Today's reading comes from John chapter 11, 17 through 25. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies."
Today's scripture is from John chapter 11, verse 1 through 7. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters went to Jesus. "Lord, the one you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "The sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. Then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea."
Just want to say good morning to all of you, and want to say a special thank you to both Edgar and Sabrina for sharing the reading of the Word of God with us this morning. We pick up in John chapter 11. This is a incredible place in the ministry of Jesus. He has at this point garnered the attention of many as he has healed the sick, as he has given sight to the blind. He's done all kinds of things that are unusual to the status quo. He's about to do something this time that would shake the religious community. There were 2 times before when Jesus actually caused a person to be raised from the dead. One is in Luke chapter 7, and we can turn to that. Luke chapter 7. I'm going to just find that real quick here. Beginning with verse 11, it says here, "Soon after Jesus went to the town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, 'Don't cry.' Then he went up and touched the bier they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. And he said, 'Young man, I say to you, get up.' The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother." We find also the only other occasion where Jesus raised someone from the dead, and this is found in Mark chapter 5, beginning with verse 35. This is while Jesus was speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with the people crying and wailing loudly. And he went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? And the child is not dead, but is asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha Koum." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this they were completely astonished, and they gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. In both of these occasions where Jesus has resurrected someone, each time the controversy began to grow. What is a traditional belief at that time is that the soul, or the nepesh, would stay around the body for 3 days. And then after the 3 days, when the body began to decay, a person was considered dead on the fourth day. When Jesus resurrected the young lady, it's significant because this is the leader of a synagogue. Here is this moment where this leader who shares in the sharing of the Torah, now he is experiencing the Messiah. Now he is face to face with this one that he's been looking for. Now, it has to be a difficult position for him to be in, because at this point there have been people who are trying their best to deny the ministry of Jesus. So if we'll turn back to John chapter 11, we pick up on this final resurrection before Jesus' own resurrection. Now there was Lazarus who was sick, and at this point Jesus is in Perea. He's about 2 days' journey away from Lazarus, who's in Bethany, and somewhere along the way Lazarus falls sick, and Mary and Martha send word to Jesus that Lazarus has fallen ill, and if he would please just come and heal him. Well, when Jesus gets this message, he says something that is something we need to hold on to, because it's not just dismissive. He's setting the tone for something special that is getting ready to happen. He says, "This sickness is not unto death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified in it." Now, somewhere between this moment and him staying for another 2 days, Lazarus passes away. And when Jesus says, "Let's go back to Jerusalem," there is a 2-day journey. There's a 2-day journey that has to take place. Well, in this, Lazarus has had his funeral. He has been in the grave. not 1 day, not 2 days, not 3 days, but he has been in the grave for 4 days. So now the belief system says that this man is dead. It can't be explained away. It can't. No one can now look at this and say, well, the first 2 resurrections didn't count because they were raised within that 3-day period. Well, now his body stinks. Lazarus has been in the grave for 4 days, and his body stinks. Everything surrounding this says there is no hope. But we have to hold on to the words that Jesus says. This sickness it will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified. Well, when Jesus when he arrives at the place of Bethany, it's 2 miles from Jerusalem, and this incredible conversation, this conversation takes place between Martha and Jesus. You can hear the pain that is in her voice when Jesus says, listen, your brother is going to rise again. But she cannot get past 4 days. She cannot get past this moment where she asked both her and Mary asked for him to come and heal Lazarus, and Jesus just didn't come when they called. He didn't come, and now he is dead, and he's officially dead, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. You can kind of pick up on the anger and the intensity of the moment when Martha says to him, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus then makes the statement, your brother will rise again. Now, in the human mind, one has to say, but now the time has passed. The way that we believe, 3 days have gone by. Now it's 4 days. His spirit is long gone. So what you are saying here, I'll accept it the best way I can. And here Martha says, I know he'll arise. He'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day. I know it's too late for him now, but I know that sooner or later there's going to be a resurrection at the last day, and then we'll be okay. So you can kind of feel the frustration that's there. You can kind of feel the undertone that said, but if you had been here sooner, if you had just come when we called, then we would not be having this conversation right now. And then what Jesus does is Jesus says something to her that pulls her out of a linear time frame, and he pulls her into this other place. He pulls her into this place of relationship, and he is establishing himself as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, Lord of all things. He is establishing himself with this. When he says this to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Now we've shifted. Now we're not talking about time and days. Now we're talking about a relationship. Now what he's done is he's put himself into this place that is saying, and these are my words, because Lazarus knew me, that's enough. Because Lazarus knew me, that's why he is alive. And he goes on to say, the one who believes in me will live. So they're looking at this moment with Lazarus. They're looking at the grave, and they're looking at these 4 days that have gone by. And they're saying that the belief system says that he's dead. And then Jesus comes along and says, no, it doesn't happen until I say so, because I am not only the resurrection, but I'm also the life. Can you just allow that to soak in? He says, I'm the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live. So the resurrection, life itself, is not about a born-on date and a death date. Life is all about who we know. Life is all about us knowing who Jesus is and walking with him. Even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. He's looking at her and he's saying, listen, Martha, I need you to look past this moment. I know it seems impossible, but there is more to life than this body. I know it seems impossible, but with God, all things are possible. He asked her this question: do you believe this? Do you believe? She said, yes, Lord. She says, yes, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. They're about to see something that's impossible. He asked them this question later on in verse 34. Where have you laid him? Come and see. And here's this moment of emotion. Here's this moment of humanity. Here is this moment that wraps itself around the day in and day out of the relationship that Jesus had with Lazarus. He wept. He understood the weight of this moment. He understood the real deep relationship that they had. Then the Jew says, see how he loved him. See, there's a crowd now that has gathered around. Well, then Jesus does something that is impossible. The Jews were waiting for the Messiah, and they were waiting for him, and the only way that they knew that he could be identified as the Messiah is that if he did something that was impossible. Now, with the first two that were raised from the dead, see, an excuse could be made. But now, this time, there is no excuse. There's nothing that can be wrapped around this event. Jesus says something that really causes the crowd that's all around to take notice when he says, take away the stone. Okay, so now we got a decision to make. Are we going to listen to this? Because at this point, as Martha says, Lord, he's been in the grave 4 days. By this time, there's an odor. He stinks at this point. There's nothing. He's really dead. He's really dead. Decay has set in at this moment. Jesus then says, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? Buckle up and hold on tight, because we're about to go to the moon at this point. So in those moments, what do? They move away the stone. And Jesus prays this prayer: Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me. But I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. And here then comes this moment where he screams out, Lazarus, come out. Now, if we were all standing there watching this moment happen, we have to look and say, oh my goodness, has this man lost his mind? He's lost it. He's gone. But then something happens. As they're looking in the grave, they can see the rustling they can see movement in the grave. They can see that something is happening, and they look and they can see this dead man as he makes his way out of the grave, as he has this impossible moment has happened. So now the days don't matter. Jesus has said to them, I'm the resurrection. I'm the one whose life. I'm the resurrection and I'm the life. So what I say goes. When he says, Lazarus, come out, Lazarus has no choice but come out, because the resurrection and the life has spoken. In that moment, Lazarus steps out. Now, can you imagine the hush of the crowd as they watched it happen? Can you imagine what people would have thought? Can you imagine what it would have been like to see the power of that moment? Now, there's a tradition. It would have been the Pharisees who would have pronounced Lazarus dead. 4 days have gone by, and everyone at this point is aware of it. Now Jesus, the life, has spoken, and this man who was really, really dead now has to go and show himself to the Pharisees so that they have to pronounce him alive again. What a moment. What a moment. Now, with Lazarus showing himself to the Pharisees, they have the clear message. Jesus is the Messiah. He's done the impossible. He is the one that we have been waiting for. If we can just hold on to that. We all have those moments in our life where it seems like a part of us has died. We move through our life and we see moments go by, and we have dreams, and we have all of these things that we just want to happen, and we watch them start to get sick sometimes, and we watch them die, and we say, God, I thought you were in this. I thought you were on my side. I thought I heard your voice. I know that you're King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and couldn't you be here? Couldn't you help me in these moments? Couldn't you help me in my dream? Couldn't you help me through this? And it just seems like he's so far away. He's days away. And then we watch what we think is a death of our dream. We watch what we think is the death of who we are. But please know that nothing dies until the King of Kings and Lord of Lords makes that pronunciation. Well, in my own life, I used to walk in the ways of death. I've made all kinds of decisions that were dead decisions. I made all kinds of decisions that were void of the presence of God, if you will. And Jesus had to come to me in my moments of death and say to me, you rise, you come to life, and come out of that grave and take off your grave clothes. I'm so glad that Jesus did that to me. I'm so glad that in my moment of death, he called my name and gave me a new life. I'm so glad that he knows my name. I'm so glad that I have that moment where I've taken off those clothes of death. Well, maybe some of us are looking around in this season. We have so much confusion. It seems like a part of us is dying. It seems like the days are just dragging on. We don't have any answers. We call out to God. We say, God, where are you in this? And it just seems like he's just so far away. Well, he's right there for all of us, listening close, ready to call out our name, ready and fully able, because we are his. He's right there, and he says to us, I'm the resurrection, and I'll resurrect anything in your life, because that's who I am. Maybe you look at your own life and feel like, God, you can't use me anymore because I've died. Well, nope. That's not our determination. It's his. There's no death until Jesus says there is. I'm glad that the King of Kings and Lord of Lords lives in me. I'm glad the King of Kings and Lord of Lords lives in you. Amen.